We're back.
There you go.
Here we are.
And here we are.
Newsreel with Joe Neal. Joe, what's happening?
What do you mean what's happening?
Anywhere.
What kind of question is that?
Ukraine, tell us.
What's happening in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Spring offensive is going really well.
Yeah.
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 According to the media, according to the Western media, the spring offensive is going super well. And I can actually show you in a picture here. I think a few days ago, 4 or 5 days ago, whatever it was, it was 3 months since the start of the spring counter-offensive.
Yeah, June 6th.
Yeah, so 4 days ago. And here's a picture of the territory gained as a result of the 3 months of spring offensive. Just click in the picture there.
Wow, all that in red. That's cool.
No, the blue.
The blue.
Yeah.
Stop.
Come on.
How many billions?
Billions of dollars. Untold.
How many Ukrainians killed
Lost
for that?
count. 400,000 at least. Well, not obviously in the last 3 months, but yeah, quite a few in the last 3 months actually. It's a racket. Like we keep saying, war's a racket. A lot of money being made for Western, particularly American and British, and French, but particularly American and British arms, weapons manufacturers who are being paid with American and British taxpayer money to send weapons to Ukraine so that Russia can destroy them, and then they send more. So it's kind of like the American and British and other governments in the West are sending taxpayer money to Ukraine, and then Russia's setting it on fire. Like crate loads of dollar bills are being dropped into Ukraine, and then Russia's just throwing a match on them.
Yeah,
but that's fine because it keeps
two Challenger tanks were hit this week. One is confirmed. The Russians claim they've hit a second one.
Yeah,
the indestructible British tank.
Yeah, well, to give you an idea of the cognitive dissonance or the delusion, or I don't know what else, how else should describe it. There's a guy in the, what is he? I think he's in the Daily Mail.
Telegraph, probably.
Oh, sorry, Telegraph, yeah. Not the Daily Mail, the Telegraph. He's supposedly a former tank commander, and they have him on quite a lot for like writing articles for the Telegraph on what's going on in Ukraine. And if you just click on, there's a few pictures here.
He's an expert, because he would know.
His name is Hamish de Breton Gordon. And
never heard him.
A few months ago, when British tanks, if you click on the left-hand picture there, he wrote in the British Telegraph, British-made tanks are about to sweep Putin's conscripts aside. Note the conscripts.
Right.
British-made, the best of British. Tally-ho. Let's go, boys. Send in the British tanks. They'll sweep Putin's conscripts aside. As a former tank commander myself, I know the Challenger 2 vastly outmatches what's left of Russia's armour. So if you just click on the right arrow, then you get an update.
3 months ago.
Which is the British Challenger tank 2 tank destroyed in combat for the first time. So this is the first time this tank has ever been destroyed, because it has never really been in any kind of active combat ever in its history in terms of this modern version of it. It's never been in a
near-peer war.
It's never been in a proper conflict zone. So that's why this guy was full of delusional expectations about it. But then, not long after they arrive, the first one gets destroyed. And then if you go to
wrote that 2 days ago. Wonder what he's going to say.
Well, if you go to the next one, that was in response to this. So this was in another. His response to that tank being blown up. He said, destroying an invincible Challenger 2 in Ukraine was a stroke of pure dumb luck for the Russians. The same ex-British tank commander said. So
the Russians
the Copium
since claimed that they've hit a second one.
The Copium being snorted by that guy is just amazing. But these are the people you have to remember. This, so that you just saw three articles commented on by, or the evolution of this guy's thinking, and he's obviously delusional, or he's lying on purpose. But he can't lie, so he just obviously says, our tanks are going to sweep the Russian conscripts aside and win the war. for Ukraine, and then they're invincible basically. The first one that arrives gets destroyed, and his response is, it's just pure dumb luck. I mean, that level of delusion, self-delusion, and snorting of copium, you let it fly for the average person, whatever. But even you would know if someone said that to you, you would be like, "Yeah, dude, I know, okay, it's okay to admit that you're wrong, But the problem is that this guy is actually informing the public. He's being held up as someone who the British public at least, should listen to in terms of his analysis, because he's being pushed to the front pages. Has been for the past 2 years in this conflict. He's being pushed to the front pages. His commentary on the war in Ukraine and what to expect and what's going to happen is being, his opinion is being, or his expert opinion is being, offered up to the public as this is what you should believe in. But obviously the guy's, a bit of shit for brains, and can't even admit he was wrong when he's wrong.
They never will.
And yet this is the media that we're meant to believe. Anyway, that's what's going on in Ukraine. Apart from that in Ukraine, well, the only other Ukraine-related topic is Elon Musk, interestingly, being directly involved. I don't know how many people know Elon Musk has been directly involved in the Ukraine conflict via his Starlink, which is a civilian internet connection satellite system, a small satellite system that provides internet services to people in different places, especially hard to reach places or places that aren't covered very well. But anyway, according to a new book of a kind of autobiography, not autobiography, written by some guy about Musk. I think it's called Why Am I in This War or something like that. Anyway, apparently, if you just have a look at this article from The Guardian, it's Elon Musk committed evil with his Starlink order. Now, that's a very interesting title. According to a Ukrainian official. Okay, The Guardian says it was a Ukrainian official. But why would the Guardian decide to promote a Ukrainian official's silly comment about Elon Musk committing evil? It's a bit of hyperbole right there, obviously. But again, the Guardian, paper of record, very sober, supposedly, promotes this kind of nonsense. Even though they're quoting someone, it's like a paper of record that's a serious newspaper doesn't quote crazy people. They could pick some crazy nutter in the street. It's like Elon Musk, is a hybrid man goat, says crazy man in bar on Saturday night in London. What kind of paper would you expect that to appear in?
The National Enquirer.
Weekly World News or something like that. But apparently the same kind of thing is in The Guardian here, because obviously Ukrainian official is going to be massively biased and they're just full of propaganda. So The Guardian, not really reporting objectively the facts here, they're reporting propaganda from a Ukrainian official who's claiming that Elon Musk committed evil. And the story is that, so Musk has given access to the Ukrainian military, or given Starlink access to the Ukrainian military for, the war, and it was up to a certain point, but apparently he didn't want it to be used for something that would directly enable the Ukrainians to escalate the war to a point where at least Musk feared that there might be a serious escalation response from the Russians in terms of maybe nuclear strikes or something like that. So, anyway, the article, senior Ukrainian official accused Elon Musk of committing evil after a new biography revealed details about how the business magnate, get this, ordered his Starlink satellite communications network to be turned off near the Crimean coast last year to hobble a Ukrainian drone attack on Russian warships. Now, think about that. That implied in that paragraph is that Elon Musk had direct and accurate operational knowledge of a planned, upcoming, imminent Ukrainian drone attack on Russian warships. Is that plausible?
No.
Is Elon Musk being given, if not all of it, but at least, I don't know why they picked this one, because it was using Starlink, any Ukrainian military operation that is pending or is imminent, he's being given advance information about those upcoming operations? Would you assume that's the case or not? I don't think so.
No, absolutely not. Especially since you did.
So, but this first paragraph carries the clear implication that Musk ordered his Starlink satellite communications network to be turned off in order to hobble a Ukrainian drone attack on Russian warships, means he must have known it was coming. So it's obviously that's not the case. This is just sensationalist yellow journalism. He didn't order anything. He didn't order, he didn't hobble a specific operation. It seems that probably from the get-go, Musk decided that Starlink would not be used, and he probably obviously have a capacity to prevent Starlink being used for coverage of or for operational usage in and on the Crimea or near and on the Crimean Peninsula. So he didn't want it used for military purposes on the Crimean Peninsula. And that probably goes back a long way, or maybe from the very beginning, when he gave access or allowed the Ukrainian military to use his Starlink satellite. So this is just more bullshit, right? He didn't stop any Ukrainian.
No,
but that's the way it's been presented in the media and by CNN as well.
The biographer has since spoken up in response to this slant on the story. You put that up, Scotty. This is Walter Isaacson. He's there you go, author of a variety of things, including this bio. He wrote it also in the Washington Post. To clarify on the Starlink issue, the Ukrainians thought coverage was enabled all the way to Crimea, but it was not. They asked Musk to enable it for their drone sub-attack on the Russian fleet. Musk did not enable it because he thought, probably correctly, that would cause a major war.
Okay, so from the beginning, it never covered the Crimean Peninsula.
Covered Crimea.
And they asked him to turn it on, basically, and then maybe they told him, we've got something going on,
something operational,
but only in order to get him to turn it on.
Yeah.
And he said, well, no, I haven't turned it on. It hasn't been available for the entirety of the conflict so far, but for the specific reason that it would be dangerous in terms of possible Russian retaliation. Therefore, I'm not turning it on now, regardless of what they're doing. I don't really care what plan you have for some submarine, drone, whatever, operation against the Russian Black Sea Fleet. It doesn't matter. That's the reason I didn't turn it on in the first place. I'm not going to turn it on now just because you're going to do something. I didn't turn it on because you were going to do something probably at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Ukraine. Yeah. I mean, they keep pumping money into Ukraine. There's a new tranche there of a few $100 million, a bunch of different similar weapons, whatever. Although it was less than previously, and I suspect that it's because there aren't enough, not because there isn't the weapons available in the West to give to the Ukrainian military, it's that there aren't enough of the Ukrainian military to use them left anymore. So arms shipments may go down over the next while, progressively, as there's less and less Ukrainian soldiers, able-bodied Ukrainian soldiers to actually use those weapons. But it's very cynical. Obviously, this is the West just capitalizing on. They're just looting. They're looting, pillaging Ukraine. They're facilitating Ukrainian personnel, Ukrainian men, basically primarily to die for no good reason whatsoever, except some geopolitical dreams in the heads of Washington elite. Or I wouldn't even go so far as to say that. I mean, I think it's just, you could put it just down to money making. They're just in it for the cash. I don't think there's much in the way of, at this point, any policy angles really any more related to Ukraine, apart from the fact that we're already well into it. We can't just walk away now. We're kind of stuck in a certain sense. So what do? Well, we keep going, even though it'd be nice if it just ended.
The best we can get out of them is what we saw last week from Mitt Romney. That there's a kind of a vague paramoralistic reason. Paramoral because it's not really, but it's presented as moral, that we need to do this so that China gets the message not to do this to Taiwan. Rationally, logically, there's no geopolitical connection between the two whatsoever, but they make that, it's the kind of, they've always done it that though. I mean, LBJ on Vietnam, if we don't get them gooks now, all the little dominoes will fall in Southeast Asia, in Indochina.
Right.
It made no sense whatsoever. But it made a kind of vaguely moral sense to Americans at the time to get them behind it. And of course, the real reason was to grease the wheels of arms contracts.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the full story, if that's true, that some of them believe that there's a message being sent to China, then it's not just that China is not allowed to engage in any expansionism, i.e. Taiwan, but rather, if the Ukraine situation is used as a template, as an example, there's a step before that, which is that the US is allowed to move into countries on China's border, strategically important for China, on China's doorstep, and arm, train, and fund their military, and make them essentially a US protectorate. And China should not do anything in response. That's the message. It's not because the bullshit narrative is this is to stop Chinese expansionism into Taiwan. For no good reason. Just like Russia did in Ukraine, like it is just unprovoked.
We'll arm it to the teeth in anticipation to deter that. Whereas in fact it will be to provoke it.
Yeah. Well, it's more about America. The message being sent is America has always been an expansionist empire, obviously, and should be allowed to continue to do that unopposed.
It has to, or it'll collapse.
Right.
That's the unspoken part.
Right. That's the message. If Mitt Romney was being honest, that's the message. He said, listen, we've been an empire for maybe 100 years. We've expanded all around the globe. Our bread and butter is going into countries, taking them over and subverting them one way and bringing them into our aligned with us, or bringing them into our fold and making them aligned with us. And we have to be able to do that unopposed. If you attempt to do anything, if you take any action to try and oppose us when we do that, then you'll get Ukraine. We will continue to we'll escalate, basically.
Yeah. And we'll never back
So
down.
it's a threatening move. It's not. He presents it as a defensive move, but it's actually an offensive, threatening message that's being sent.
Yeah.
Rather than defensive.
Latest update from Russian Ministry of Defense yesterday: Russian airstrikes hit Ukraine's signal intelligence facilities, port infrastructure, sea drone production facilities, military warehouses, and fuel depots. In addition, yesterday or Friday, I'm not sure which, Russian naval aircraft destroyed 4 high-speed boats ferrying a Ukrainian assault force west of Crimea, comprised of up to 50 special ops troops. That's reported by RT. That's been happening almost weekly. They're attempting to land
on the edge of Crimea,
on Crimea,
on the western,
via
southwestern
Odessa.
coast.
They can't come from Kherson, obviously, because the counteroffensive went nowhere. And bonkers. Meanwhile, again, this is almost a weekly occurrence now for 4 months. Russia continues downing waves of Ukrainian drone strikes targeting either Crimea or Russia proper. They shot down 8 drones in the Black Sea near Crimea also yesterday or the last day before that. Just, that's still peripheral, though, to the main battlefront, which is, like we saw earlier, the map hasn't changed. They're still grinding up huge numbers of people. Hapless dupes or forced conscripts, who knows to what extent that it's forced.
It's madness. From the average person's point of view, it's madness. But then you could say that any war, or most wars, let's say, are madness. Have always been madness. If a person stopped and thought about it, there's very few major conflicts of this nature that have occurred where it hasn't just been like that anybody who went engaged in it were not being deluded, we're not being lied to, we're not being manipulated. Of course, they're always told this jingoistic, nationalistic, whatever story about good guys and bad guys, and we have to go and protect our way of life and all that kind of stuff. But that's just a manipulation. It always has been a manipulation. There are few and far between the conflicts that have occurred where they were morally right and justified, and the people who fought them had no other option. They were actually fighting for their way of life or their rights, basic fundamental rights. And it's usually been quite small, low scale conflicts. Major world wars.
It's absolutely BS that this could be existential, because if you look at the redevelopment of Mariupol, for example, the supermarkets are full, main facilities are rebuilt, everyone has power, apartment complexes are springing up all over the place. That's almost like, that's actually unprecedented, actually, to have it happen so fast. America's promise to Iraq when it went in was, we're going to rebuild. And they did, in a sense. They talked a big game and they sent massive amounts of cash to there. But the rebuilding was so piecemeal, haphazard. It was a shit show. I mean, crates of cash, as we know, were found or lost, and they either cycled back home or they went to what became the future death squads and then jihadist groups.
Yeah, well, a lot of it went to defense contractors like Halliburton and places like that who were charging, $10,000 for a chair and stuff like that. Dick Cheney's Halliburton got very, and other
price gouging.
Other companies got massively rich out of it. That's where a lot of the taxpayer rebuilding money went.
Officially, the government, Bush at the time, could say, though, we have spent, they could report to Congress, we have spent X billions on the rebuilding of Iraq, and they talked about it. So it was happening superficially, but how it translated. Anyway, I say all that for the sheer contrast with here. Actual rebuilding is taking place in those places where Russia has moved through already and, from their perspective, liberated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just talk, they've walked the walk.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So the rest of Ukraine ought not to objectively have an existential issue with all this because, okay, I can clearly see they mean what they say when it comes to we're just here to stabilize the situation, to denazify the country, whatever. On the issue of conscripts, we've all seen anecdotal evidence. There are definitely a lot of video clips of guys being hauled off the streets and practically abducted, kidnapped on the streets and thrown into cars and stuff. So that's happening to some extent. Then this week, someone in Ireland published what looked like a photo of an official letter sent to him by the Irish government, telling him that. Though. I've heard that, but only based on a quibble about the legal issues of what's claimed in it. No one's claiming that the actual contents of the letter are photoshopped, or that none of the letter heading or who it would have been sent from and so on, the address, someone in the Ministry of Justice. No one's claimed it's fake. They're claiming it's fake based on, in Ireland, if you're in the country as a war refugee and you're sought for conscription back home, historically, the Irish government has not extradited you. Mm-hmm. Fine, that may be the case, but the letter's telling him he has a hearing date and he must attend it or he will be arrested. So they're going through the process of getting him to a hearing. He may be all in the clear because they'll say at the hearing, sorry, in Ireland we don't extradite. Okay, but that's an example of what's going on in the background. Did I send you this last one, Scotty? Let's look at what the Ukrainian regime itself is saying. This is September 9, 2 days ago. Ukraine demands extradition of its draft-age men, which in Ukraine is vastly wide because it's now officially 18 to 54 years old. Okay, off the bat they say the Austrian and Czech government are telling them no for now. The Czech government, mind you, is headed by an ex-NATO general, so we'll see how long that lasts. But others are being very helpful in get their information. Poland, we'll see later on the article. I want to stick on the second paragraph. Poland has kindly let Ukraine know that there are about 80,000 military-age men there that they could draw on. And the German government has also pitched in just to let them know, by the way, we estimate we have about 200,000 military-age men among our Ukrainian war refugees in Germany. So last week, David Arakhamia, parliamentary faction leader of Ukraine's governing party, Servant of the People, said that Ukrainian law enforcement agencies should demand the extradition of men of military age who had illegally left Ukraine to escape mobilization. The Ukrainian leadership is stepping up its efforts to recruit soldiers, but there are more and more reports of men fleeing the country to avoid military service. These people could be mobilized and increase the ranks of our armed forces, thereby strengthening our defense and security, says a member of Ukraine Parliament's National Security, Defense and Intelligence Committee. Because that's the official word. Fodder. They want them, and they tend to get what they want. So, yeah. I mean, how far do they want this war to go on? They have a pool of... I estimate, based on the numbers that are at the foot of that article, there's about 400,000, a pool of about 400,000 military-age men in just the European Union states that they could start to put on planes and send back.
Yeah.
That's the next step. That's where it could go next.
And then go through basic training and become cannon fodder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's if none of them, you assume none of them are military. Most of them are not military men, with a military background, so they're going to need a lot of training. If they're not just going to end up...
The omens aren't looking good. Guess who went to Ukraine last week? Here's a little clip of her arriving to give him his marching orders.
Mr. President, so good to see you.
So Blinken himself, officially in charge, although the real person in charge comes behind him. There she is.
Good to see you. How are you? Welcome. Very welcome.
Yeah, so they weren't there to talk peace,
Пане секретаре,
I'm afraid.
команда, дуже вітаємо вас.
You can cut it there. They're not there to talk. They're there to talk war and death. So, yeah, not looking good. It still amazes me that, Blinken, his family were Eastern European. Technically, they were Hungarians, but it's actually in a part of Hungary that used to be Ukrainian. And Newland, of course, forget what their real name was before they changed it when they emigrated to the US. They were part of, I think they're from Lithuania or Poland. The borders changed, of course, during the course of the 20th century. But I'm not the only one who's noticed this. Colonel McGregor has said this in passing a few times. Everyone refers to them as neocons, which is a kind of an ideological catch-all. But he's pointed out specifically that people in charge of foreign policy in the United States post 9/11, and their numbers kind of cement and increase, all come from that part of the world. They have this, I don't know, he suggested like it's a blood vengeance, a vendetta against imperial Russia, and Putin is a reincarnation of it. And that's what, and that might explain the ideological full-on focus on why this is existential for Washington, beyond just simply because it's a way to get Russia, I think there might be something to it. There's a lot of the ties that bind, when the CIA and the MI6 started embracing Ukrainian Nazis after World War II. Initially, the CIA said no, they wouldn't. MI6 did on the QT, though, and maybe in the later 50s into the 60s, the CIA embraced it. In the meantime, MI6 had facilitated tons of them to follow the large numbers of Ukrainian emigres who ended up in Canada, which, of course, produced another notorious she's currently the foreign minister. No, she's currently the deputy prime minister, Freeland, also of Ukrainian origin. Her grandfather, in fact, was an active Nazi for the Ukrainians back in the time.
Yeah, it's very strange how they all... But then you think that, the State Department and similar in other Western countries would be, be full of people who, in the context of the Cold War and then, the new Cold War, that it would have been staffed with people who were Eastern European kind of trainees, if you know what I mean, that they'd gone through school and focused on Russia, focused on, because the Cold War never stopped, right? So there's a cadre of them that came up and through and were protégés of the older ones and stuff and brought them in because that was always the focus. The Cold War never ended, right? They kept bringing them in. And you want people who are ideologically on song, if you know what I mean. You want it more than just the average bureaucrat, It's helpful to have people who have that ideological fixation,
Applebaum,
to push the...
who's married
to be personally invested in it rather than seeing it as just a...
Do you remember last week we looked at it briefly? We laughed at it, we lampooned it because it was farcical on the face of it. The Blood Tribe neo-Nazi protests in Tampa, Florida. I don't recall what they were specifically attending or attempting to disrupt, but they were all there with the swastikas and tats and Sikh Isles. It was obviously farcical. And when interviewed, they said they supported Biden because he would support the war in Ukraine, which just contradicted the whole point of trying to provoke in people's minds the spectre of white supremacy and tag it on Trump. But anyway, there is a serious edge to this. Laura Loomer, Jewish American journalist who's kind of, she ran as a Republican candidate 2022, I think. She was there, and she did some follow up stuff about the people who attended. You remember the guy with the face tattoos, the
Mm-hmm.
ugly bastard, Boneface McClellan. Okay, I won't read the whole thing, but she's discovered, if you scroll down to the image, I think there's a couple of photos at the base of this. Yeah, this is the key one here. So the guy you see highlighted, Sergei Dibinin, not sure how you pronounce that. On the right is him at Maidan in 2014. On the left is him at the Capitol on January 6th.
Well,
And she's pretty sure like that the American guy, Kent Boneface McClellan, is
Ukraine,
definitely
yeah.
on the payroll. The guy himself is on record as boasting that he had served in Ukraine
Mm-hmm.
and that he's back safely attending just idiotic protests to provoke people in the United States. Some more updates on this.
So what the hell is a guy-
This guy, McClellan, has been threatening her, calling her up all week.
what the hell is a guy who's at Maidan, I suppose, in support of the Maidan protest, trying to basically U.S. State Department sponsored coup, funded and sponsored coup. What the hell was a guy at that in 2014 doing at the January 6th pro-Trump rally, riot, insurrection, mutiny?
Well,
Coup.
the simple answer is he's on the payroll, so he's just doing
the hell
his
did he do?
job.
What the hell
But
did
the ideological connection
But what's he doing
is
there?
most interesting.
What's he doing at the January 6th riot, January 6th insurrection?
Probably encouraging the
Encouraging.
naive ones, like the guy he's voted with, Jacob Chansley, that ended up getting him in prison for a year and a half. Encouraging, helping to, shape the events of that day as he hears on an earpiece or
And there
something.
were a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, she knows of one for sure. The ideological connection is that, I suppose, tenuously, if they're not just simply doing what they're told because that's where the salary comes from, they would have sought to target Trump
Because
via January 6th
Out of Ukraine.
because he was the reason the war had stalled. Remember, we heard McCain and Lindsey Graham say to them when they arrived in December 2016, oh, no, it was before Trump was elected. He said next year, it's just before the election. They're in Ukraine in late 2016, and they're promising Azov types. Next year, 2017, will be a year. We're going to get them, That was delayed.
Yeah. Okay, tangled web, as usual. India, G20. Putin wasn't there. They keep on saying Putin wasn't there, blah, 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 because he's been isolated and alienated and nobody wants him. He's
Nobody
afraid.
wants- yeah.
He's afraid to go and blah, blah. But they don't mention the fact that Xi Jinping didn't go either.
But he's also afraid.
Okay. But he's not isolated and alienated either. I mean, that's not the case. Anyway, just more propaganda in the media. It's just ridiculously transparent. This is Biden, though. I mean, at least Biden was there because at least he would be able to hold everything together, keep the international community, the golden billion, on song,
And keep the rules-based order focused.
keep it all focused on where it needs to be focused on. And he did a really good job here, if you have a listen.
And I particularly want to thank Prime Minister Modi and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, and President von der Leyen and the European Commission. And since he's not speaking today, I wanted to, well, maybe he is speaking today. I had a note he wasn't speaking. At any rate, I'm going to stop there.
Excellent.
Okay, he had the wherewithal to shut up at that point.
I'm going to get my coat. I should leave now.
I love how he said salam twice.
Mohammed bin Salam. I mean Salam.
Salami.
Let me correct myself there and get it wrong again. Of course, it's Mohammed bin Salman, but he said Salam, and he was one letter away from saying Mohammed bin Salami, which would have been cool. Yeah. So G20, just talking shop. Not much going on there, really.
Well, what do you think of this idea that it's Obama pulling the strings, that Obama's actually living out his third term. I know there's a deep state and blah, 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 and the issues, the orders probably come from higher or CIA and intel briefs and the State Department and lawyers on Wall Street and stuff. But functionally, it needs a coordinator, at least official government. White House does.
Yep.
He obviously isn't.
You have plenty of White House aides and different people who are, picked, not elected. It's a bit of a right wing conspiracy theory that I think is, justifies the ridicule that it gets. The idea that Osama, did you say Osama or Obama? Osama's running the show. That Obama's running the show. It's just silly.
Well, I mentioned before, he's the first president to not actually leave DC after his term's ended.
Yeah, because
They're supposed to.
Because of
There was a good reason for it in the
a lot
past.
of boyfriends there.
Have a listen to this. This is him, I presume, sometime during Trump's years. I know, it's just offhand comments, but in hindsight, they take on a new color.
What you know now, do you wish you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
Wow. Also, it was him, of course, that sicked the whole... Well, it would have had to have come. He would have had to sign off on it. The sicked Russiagate on Trump. I know the brainchild began in Hillary Clinton's campaign, but he needed... Legally, what became Russiagate was kicked off by...
I think the
FISA court... And
that idea
like
conflicts with my general kind of understanding that presidents in America are really not very important. Especially kind of establishment ones like that. They're basically front men. They don't know a lot. They don't know very much, and they're just there to fulfill a largely ceremonial position. It's kind of, that's what he was talking about there. He's just tired of being out front, being the kind of smiley greeter, meter and greeter type thing. I'd rather be sitting, because you get bored with that. I'd say a lot of them get bored with that in a certain sense, at least after a while, especially if you're president, it's too much work basically, because he's fundamentally lazy, right? But the idea that any former president is a kind of key player or anything, that just doesn't sound right to me, because there's such a massive infrastructure behind that has been running the show for such a long time, i.e. the intel agencies, that Obama's he's married to Michelle. That's more than enough work for him to be getting on with, That's more than enough of a job for him to do post. And he had to stay in Washington, D.C. for her, because that's where the specialist clinics are. Anyway.
Rumor is Michelle's running to replace Biden in 24. We'll see.
Running as what?
As the president.
A man or a female or male?
As the first female president. Yes, the first female president.
First non-binary president. Yeah.
What do you think of Tucker's warnings? He gave 2 big warnings in his interview. We already covered a clip from his interview, because he talked to Adam Carolla, the actor who now has a podcast, and that's where he told him the story about Larry Sinclair. He's since interviewed Sinclair. But there were also 2 warnings in that podcast from 2 weeks ago. One was that he thinks Trump's going to be assassinated. And the other is he's, in his Tucker way, he's dead sure they're going to provoke a hot war with Russia pre-election to issue an emergency situation to control the media, or maybe to better control the election process.
There can't be a hot war with Russia.
Because he's mad.
Yeah, there can't be a hot war. So I think that's a non-starter. But in terms of what was the guy, Larry Sinclair? His claims about Obama. Why is his claim about Obama any less credible than the claims by that woman? What was her name?
Yeah.
Against Trump,
Christine,
whatever her face is, that claimed him of the illicit illicit
take your pick. The
touching.
claims against the guy who was a Supreme Court candidate, of panhandler rape or whatever it was back when he was a student with her in the 90s, that almost side-railed him becoming a Supreme Court justice. I forget his name. And the protest that followed. Yeah, and of course the mantra at the time in the media was always believe her.
Yeah.
Whenever she makes a claim.
So basically, the problem is that everybody is meant to believe that this woman, or her claims about Trump in the late 80s in the department store, believe her because it's Trump being a touchy-feely man or something like that. Not everybody knows that happens, right? Men just can't control themselves. But there's no way Obama could be gay. Is that not homophobic?
There's that too.
Is it not like, is there not a bias there where you don't believe it because
it's lurid on the face of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, no, Obama having sex with another man? Ew, that's ridiculous. You're making things up, Neil. That's ridiculous. That would never happen. That never happens, actually. There is no such thing as gay people. It's kind of like, or more or less, yeah.
Yeah.
And Obama's just like, he's the president. Presidents aren't gay. Ooh, really?
Oh.
Presidents can't be gay. Interesting point of view. Does it come from lefties, like basically not believing these claims or dismissing these claims? Surely they should love the idea that Obama's gay. Bring it on. First gay president.
Yeah.
And first transgender first lady.
Did you watch the interview?
Yeah.
What did you think?
Why not?
Why not?
He didn't seem any less credible. In fact, he seemed a bit more credible than that crazy lady
Yeah.
who accused Trump in the department store. But that's, I mean, either way, I'll say, yeah, if you're going to accept one, accept the other. If you're not going to accept it, then don't accept the other.
I thought his story of, because there's always the question of, well, what motivates someone to come forward with the dirt, right? Is it money or is it a cause? Well, I suppose in the case of the ladies against Trump, they're liberals by nature. Maybe they've had their heads turned. This guy's bad. We really need to do something to stop him. And so they come on board and they join the cause. Here, though, his is a lot more bigger. He would not have had anything against Obama, policy-wise or anything. Maybe he's naturally a liberal at the time, stuff like that. I thought it was interesting that his story was that he wrote to the campaign when Obama first ran in late 2007, because he wanted to clarify the record on Obama's drug-taking issues. He didn't mention the sex at all. And that, he goes on to explain to Tucker Carlson that came up when I got a call back from someone close to the campaign saying, look, this is going to go nowhere. Obama denies the sex and the drug claims. And the guy was like, what? I never mentioned the first part. So, and the guy he had conversations with to deal with the issue and put it to rest ended up shot dead in his apartment. Donald Young, who was an associate of Obama's. Unsolved murder, 7 shots, 2 to the head. No one in the apartments nearby heard it, probably with a silencer. Suicide at Ala Clinton. Very possible. But, again, he said, she said, there's no evidence for it. But I found the most interesting thing is that were his descriptions of the character. Now, what's he going to know from, a crack cocaine fueled tryst? Not a lot. But he might be right in that he claimed to be a good judge of character, and that one needs to be in the world he lives in, because otherwise you can end up mugged, killed, who knows what will happen to you. I thought it was interesting that Sinclair, and his story has been consistent because he wrote a book. Remember, we mentioned that? He wrote a book at the time, and since then, he's always had the same story, is that he thought right away that there was something psychologically aberrant about Obama. They're my words now, not his. He didn't say it exactly like that. What he said was that he's watching Obama campaign in 07, 08, and he's like, what I remember of someone like him and the way he was and the way he's acting with people, he's presenting himself as going to be a great unifier of people, And he said so. I thought to myself at the time, this guy is going to be so divisive. It's going to be it's going to have completely the opposite effect. Again, he's telling this, we're learning his claims after the fact. But if that is really what he thought at the time, he was so right.
Yeah.
He also said that he got the sense from Obama he's the kind of person that every little thing he does, big things, small things, whatever, is all designed to get him power, to get him the next thing. It's suave and calm and smooth on the surface, but it's always with a manipulation or a hook. You know. Anyway,
Yeah. At this point, nobody should, nobody should dismiss any allegation, especially one like that. And, you're talking about people in positions of power and who have sought power all their lives, and the fact that they're psychologically, deviant in some way or other, or sexually deviant or whatever, is not something, or at least that they lie and they misrepresent themselves. And there's more. What's going on behind the curtain is very different from the public face they give. Why would you, dismiss that out of hand?
Dismiss it, yeah.
Speaking of Trump,
Oh, can I show something first?
Yeah.
A quick tweet from Elon Musk, who weighed in on this.
yeah,
He said it without saying it, I think. I don't know what he was saying, to be honest. It's actually kind of open. He's probably seen this meme structure before.
Dominoes.
Dominoes. Jack Ryan at the Paris Sex Club. That was the guy who was running against, he was the GOP candidate running against Obama in 2004 to become state senator for Illinois. He drops out, and he was probably the favorite at the time. After a scandal that's brought up, like a scandal going back to the 90s. Not a new one or a fresh one. Ryan drops out of the Senate race. Obama takes his place. Well, he won against whoever took Ryan's place. Becomes senator, wins presidency, and then alleged Obama drug-fueled orgy. What is most interesting about the tweet, though, is actually his comment. What the hell?
What, Dominoes effect?
Shades of Pizzagate.
Oh, with the pizza?
Pizza slice and Dominoes. Dominoes as in Domino's pizza, but okay.
Well, Dominoes is the Dominoes. Dominoes is apostrophe S.
Okay.
But he put a pizza on there, yeah. Who knows?
His father has said this week that he's worried about his son's safety.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he could be assassinated.
His father's a bit of a crazy person, though.
Well, they are from the elite, so
Who?
the Musks.
The elite?
Yeah, well,
His father's just a businessman in South Africa.
he's in South Africa. His mother moved to
was.
New York, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not political leader or anything like that. His family.
No.
They're not, yeah. His father's fairly wealthy, but he was apparently a very violent man. So anyway,
Okay.
that second one, or the other, moving on to Trump, yeah, we're talking about Trump, Trump-related stuff. Just put that one up. He talked recently, he gave a fiery statement in a new campaign video. I thought it was interesting. He's flipped a little bit. Have a listen.
The left-wing lunatics are trying very hard to bring back COVID lockdowns and mandates with all of their sudden fear-mongering about the new variants that are coming. Gee whiz, you know what else is coming? An election. They want to restart the COVID hysteria so they can justify more lockdowns, more censorship, more illegal drop boxes, more mail-in ballots, and trillions of dollars in payoffs to their political allies heading into the 2024 election. Does that sound familiar? These are bad people. These are sick people we're dealing with. But to every COVID tyrant who wants to take away our freedom, hear these words: we will not comply. So don't even think about it. We will not shut down our schools. We will not accept your lockdowns. We will not abide by your mask mandates. And we will not tolerate your vaccine mandates. They rigged the 2020 election, and now they're trying to do the same thing all over again by rigging the most important election in the history of our country, the 2024 election, even if it means trying to bring back COVID. But they will fail because we will not let it happen. When I'm back in the White House, I will use every available authority to cut federal funding to any school, college, airline, or public transportation system that imposes a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate. Thank you very much.
Fighting words. But he's kind of flipped a little bit. Obviously, he wasn't that outspoken against COVID when it was happening.
Yeah.
And didn't call it COVID hysteria at the time. But he's got on board with that now, And of course, pretty much everything he says there is true. but other people, large percentage of the population, at least in America and elsewhere in the English-speaking world, or anybody who listens to it, would look at that and say, yeah, Trump's just crazy. But it's bizarre that he can actually, say things that are demonstrably true, provably true, in fact, and it gets dismissed as crazy Trump,
Would you encourage people to, I don't know, get behind Trump, to support him, to vote for him?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
If they're going to get behind somebody or something, then yeah. But I mean, I think he's got more than enough people behind him already. You don't need to encourage anybody else to. You know what I mean? I wouldn't encourage people to get out and kind of carry Trump signs down the street and kind of march for him or anything necessarily. But I would encourage people to at least in their own minds, in a certain sense, recognize the fact that the only reason he has been attacked so much for the last 7 years, literally now, or more, is because he posed a threat to the people who hold power, unelected people who hold power in America, and that they don't, and their agenda, which is not an agenda that is in the interests of the average person in the street. So whether you like him or not, and whether he goes off script, or whether or not he misses some points, or he's a bit of a blowhard and he's a lot of bluster and he doesn't express himself well and all that kind of stuff, the bottom line is he's the only person in America today, really, who knows what's going on, knows the reality of the situation, and actually has the interest of the people at heart, rather than the interest of the little clique of ruling elite who are currently conspiring to increase controls over the population and to squeeze the population further and further and further. I mean, he at least doesn't. It's weird the way, I don't know. It's weird the way someone like Trump is the person who actually, carries that standard of being a man of the people, basically, and having the interest of the people at heart. It's weird that someone of his nature and persona and stuff is the best you can get, because he does leave a lot to be desired in that respect, but the point is you look beyond the surface and look at the substance, and that's what so many people don't seem to be able to do today, is to see the substance behind. They'll believe Obama because he dances on the Ellen show beside his wife, who's got something swinging between her legs, and they'll believe that what Obama says because he dances well. They'll believe him, anything he says after he dances well, they'll believe it. But Trump posts up with his big red head and his orange face or whatever, and his funny hair and his not very well articulated speeches and stuff, and they'll dismiss him on that basis rather than listen to what he's actually saying and try and understand what his actual intent is. So that's the problem in the world today. Really, is people taking the surface for reality, and not being able to, or not being inclined to, or not being willing to, I don't know, to look beyond and try and understand what's actually going on and understand the world around them. And I don't know why things have got so bad. 100 years ago, people weren't as stupid, because that's fundamental. It's kind of like a definition of stupidity, being unable to read a situation, but being unable to kind of intuitively scratch the surface and see that what someone is presenting to you is probably a line of bullshit, and you're not going to believe that person and just ignore them and look for someone else, or look to someone else. A lot of people don't seem to have the ability to do that anymore. They're just like just like big stupid sponges who just absorb the dominant signal, with no discernment at all. It's very strange, and it has, it's no. Of course, you're going to get chaos in any country or any society when that's the way the population is kind of set up. Not good, but Rugby World Cup. Woohoo! Like rugby, Neil?
No.
What's rugby? You meant to say, what's rugby? What the hell are you talking about?
You mean soccer ball?
Soccer ball. And tonight, soccer ball. No, tonight, rugby ball. Rugby ball. It's kind of like American football, only real. Only better. No. Anyway, there's
I'm not taking a side on
Rugby World Cup. You should. Rugby World Cup started, and in France, this every 4 years, World Cup. rugby teams, different national rugby teams get together in France and play for the next freaking like 6 weeks or something crazy like that until there's a final. But anyway, it just started this week. And there was an opening ceremony. The first match was in Paris. There was an opening ceremony in Paris in one of the big stadiums. And of course, little Emmanuel was there to take advantage of the situation and big up himself on the world stage. So here he is. And see if you can notice something going on in the background. Hard to get a word in edgeways because of all that whistling and booing.
I think I figured it out. They moved the Eiffel Tower inside the stadium.
Exactly. That's the kind of observation we're looking for, Neil.
Yeah, no, it's
Out of touch, you know.
Totally.
But they don't care.
He does it every time he inserts himself into
Some
sports.
stage, some stage like that.
big
yeah.
time. He did it with the French soccer team as well, giving speeches, and
Nobody wanted to go near
hanging
him.
out in the changing room with him after.
Trying to grab soccer players and stuff.
Yeah.
Trying to touch up the soccer players. Because, of course, Emmanuel Macron is gay as well
Yeah.
as Obama,
Yeah.
just in case you wondered. Well, unofficially,
Unofficially.
but there you go. So it's strange, you know. I mean, it just seems to be, even amongst the political elite, the political, like, playmakers and stuff, you know, the advisors, all that kind of stuff in government in the Western world, they really don't think it's a good idea for our president to be gay. Of a major nation, because they have two opportunities, and this going back, you know, to 2008 with Obama, and 6 years ago with Macron. They had an opportunity to say, and we present to you the first gay president of America, France. Didn't take the opportunity. They slammed a big lid on it, and not allowed. Why? Don't we all love the gays?
Maybe they thought the time wasn't right.
Ah, come on.
Yeah.
Maybe later.
Yeah. It's yet to come.
So you're saying we will have an officially first gay president of a major world nation. We already have one in Ireland, like, but that's not a major world nation.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, we
They-
can dream. We can hope. Hopey changey.
It's too late now. There's a backlash, I suppose. It's not directed against homosexuality per se, but
Moralizing.
the winds have shifted. It would, if there was any smarts left in the advisory classes, they would be redirecting away from the left and putting in someone on the right they can control. You know,
Should put this guy in.
they seem to find
This
that
guy's
difficult.
finally answered the question that has been a problem for a lot of people of late. You want to hear?
I have.
Let's hear. Answer the unanswerable question.
Yeah. What is a woman?
What is a woman?
It's your mama.
That's
Obama.
right.
It's Michelle Obama.
Plain and simple.
You that confused? Let me come and watch it. I tell you, it's your mama. It sure ain't your daddy.
That's right. Go ahead.
President Biden joining in on the conversation. We didn't know what a woman. We didn't know what a woman is. A woman is your mama.
That's right. Tell him about Pastor.
That man is past 80, isn't he? He's past 80, right?
I believe so.
You mean to tell me you past 80 and you don't know your mama and your wife
That's right.
is a woman? They keep trying to shove this trash on Africa.
That's
And
right.
African presidents, one by one, is standing up against it.
That's right.
He should be the next president
Yeah.
of America.
Um,
Yo, mama! So if anybody asks that question ever again, you know the answer now. Just say, it's your mama.
Speaking of Africa, Niger says France is deploying forces in ECOWAS countries. Officially, no. There's nothing from Paris about anything, whether it's military personnel or equipment. Also, this week, clashes have begun in Burkina Faso, and it's probably gonna play out this way. Militants came over the border. No one knows where they are, who they are, where they came from.
Mysterious militants.
It left like
from Langley, Virginia.
20 soldiers dead.
Yeah. 53, apparently.
50, higher than that, okay.
Soldiers.
Yeah. Azerbaijan, Armenia kicking off again. This could go hot. The Iranians have said they're going to send military forces to the border with Azerbaijan. Turkey's warning them, Iran, against intervention. Armenia this week is hosting joint military exercises with the United States. Russia says that's not very friendly. The drills, known as the Eagle Partner Exercises 2023, will take place from tomorrow, September 11th to 20th. We'll see. Like that's an absolute minefield of a problem right there. It would be interesting though to see Iran side with Armenia, the Christian country, against Azerbaijan, the Muslim country, turning the whole sectarian premise on its head. You know.
Yeah, I mean, Armenia is strange. You know, Armenia obviously has been traditionally pro-Russian.
Yeah.
Georgia not so much, but Georgia kind of keeping the peace in a certain sense, or staying quiet. But Georgia was always. But this, I mean, the fact that's happening now is like points directly to American State Department moves. You know, assurances, etc., etc. You know. I don't know if anything. I mean, obviously it's happened before, so we don't know if anything will kick off in any significant way. But something to watch for sure, because obviously it would put pressure on Russia's southern border and stuff. You know, give Russia something else to worry about if they can. They'd love to. You know, on in the South Caucasus there. You know, they'd love to give Russia a problem there. You know,
I think I think they're ready for it. I think they expect it.
Absolutely.
This week,
they expect everything basically.
We no longer years gone past. We used to talk about it every week. The war in Syria and how that was progressing. You know, the status quo it left with was 8,000-9,000 US soldiers in the northeast with the Kurds, and a whole bunch of bottlenecked jihadists pushed up by the Syrians and the Russians into Idlib in the northeast. Well, this week there were airstrikes. Russians conducted airstrikes, killing around 110 jihadists in Idlib. It's another pressure point. It's another point where also Turkey and Russia collide. That whole southern border of Russia is like, I don't know how they can manage.
They do a lot of work trying to keep everything under control, because they know it's been, the Americans will be all over it like in a second. They are all over it and they're trying their best, you know. But yeah, like you said, Russia has expected that for a long time. It goes back to 2008 with the war in Georgia and that kind of stuff. That was, you know, indirectly supported by the US, you know. So they know their potential fracture points or weak points on their borders that, you know, that America has been probing them. It goes back like 40, 50, 60, 70 years, you know what I mean? So they're well versed in US tactics in that respect, you know. Whether or not the US will actually get any traction out of it remains to be seen, but they're definitely trying. Did you obviously, are you gonna Morocco earthquake?
Yeah, it was crazy.
2,000 plus,
last night.
6.8. Not common in Africa. Very uncommon. I think they said something like 500 years since an earthquake of that size was happened in that area.
Yeah, not the worst they've had in the country though.
No.
There was one in the 1960 that killed 12,000 people, but it's they hit Marrakesh. Is that that's not the capital of the country? Maybe it's like one of its oldest cities. Marrakesh is like 1,000-year-old. It's got 1,000-year-old buildings in it, and some of them were damaged. For the first time? It's interesting as well that happens right after the country was flooded in this crazy jet stream blocking event that took place in the last week, 10 days. People have probably seen this, some insane flooding the world over last week, but especially in our part of the world, in Spanish Peninsula and then Morocco on one side, and then over on the other eastern side of Europe, Greece, Bulgaria, the Balkans. And then in the middle, a late summer heat wave that brought some record high temperatures for September all the way up to UK and Ireland, and Saharan dust falling as far north as Scotland. I have I think a satellite still of what that looks like. Yeah, they call it Jetstream Omega, just where you get extreme blocking on two sides. Now, somebody look at this and explain to me how my choosing to fly or not, or to eat meat or not, regulates extreme jet stream meandering, because I don't see how I don't understand how they can explain. Remember that the premise of man-made global warming is not that we humans contribute all the CO2. We contribute at most 3% of the CO2 in the atmosphere. So the theory is at the margins we're pushing things more extreme one way and the other. And then the jet stream, like how in the hell that is in the upper atmosphere? It's been known for ages that it's correlated with solar activity in part, not only, but there are massive cosmic forces, electromagnetic, solar, involved with what the jet stream does. But of course, then they see all the videos coming out and they go, oh my God, #climate emergency. You know, like, yeah, it's a climate emergency, but I suppose it is, but there's nothing you can do about it but just write it out.
Yeah.
And your government ain't going to come save you when the car is floating down the street.
Yeah, well, there's definitely, like, I mean, I think there's a move northward of that. You know, there's a kind of a belt of kind of precipitation. It causes monsoons. Kind of north, just north of the equator type thing in certain areas around the world. Serious monsoon, you know, every year at certain monsoon season, you know. And I think that belt is, as a function of this climate change that's caused by many different factors, is moving north, which means you'll have a lot more precipitation, flash flooding, monsoon type downpours in more northern latitudes than is usual. But then the problem is if that moves, that's in temperate areas, you know, you don't get any freezing or any cold weather near the poles, so or cold air coming down from the poles. So if you move that belt of precipitation further north, and then you get into winter and cold, you have a large in the winter season you have a build up of snow and ice, a rapid build up of snow and ice, which then can lead to an ice age. That's my theory anyway. But just on the you said the scientists and the climate scientists, and this was in the Telegraph just this week. Climate scientists admits overhyping impact of global warming and wildfires to get published. Dr. Patrick Brown claims research that cuts against the mainstream narrative on climate change is taboo in certain journals.
Fascinating. So it's taboo nowadays
He's
to not lie.
He has admitted that overhyping the impact of global warming on wildfires to ensure his work was published in the prestigious science journal Nature. So it's not that he's calling out other people. He's saying he basically is one of the few that had a pang of conscience, because he was actually doing this. He understood intuitively, like all the rest of them do, that in order to get your work published in prestigious journals, you had to overhype the impact of global warming on, in this specific case, wildfires.
You had to be political.
You had to play it up. So, so he's the co-director of the climate and energy team at the Breakthrough Institute in Berkeley. And he published a paper last week arguing that climate change has increased wildfires in California. But in a blog then, he basically outs himself in a blog and a series of posts on X, formerly known as Twitter. Dr. Brown admitted that there were other factors influencing wildfires that he had purposefully omitted, such as poor forestry management and
Trump
an
said
increase
that.
in people starting fires deliberately or accidentally.
Trump also said that.
He said he found that journals would not publish climate studies unless they follow a specific formula and a mainstream narrative in which global warming was viewed as the sole culprit for environmental destruction.
Yeah.
So what about the consensus? What about the
Yeah,
science
no.
is settled?
I get hit with it every time I wade in on some thread on Twitter about this. Yeah, but there's thousands. Are you saying they're all lying? I'm like,
No.
you don't understand. This guy here is saying, if you do not lie, you lose your access, your job, and eventually your whole career. You have to lie.
Well,
To lie is the norm.
it's not necessarily that you lose your career, it's that you just basically don't get funding and don't get the kudos and that you want to get, that they're all aspiring to. It's kind of like saying, are you saying that most people who work in a business for a company, if they tend to stick to the company policy, and if they see something that's a bit kind of like dodgy or whatever, they tend to just not say anything about it in order to keep the jobs because they don't want to rock their boat, because at the end of the day, they're just like, I just work here, I just get a paycheck, I'm just living paycheck to paycheck, I work in the company, I know there's some dodgy dealings going on in the company, but I'm not going to stand up and talk to a newspaper about it, I'm not going to tweet about it, I'm not going to say anything on social media. I have to be careful about my social media anyway because it's scrutinized. I work in this company, I know there's dodgy deals going on, but I just keep my mouth shut in order just to keep getting my paycheck. Are you saying that there's anybody in the world that has ever done that, Neil?
Than most people.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Anyway, no, you're wrong. Nobody ever does that because the science.
Let me rephrase that then. It's not that they're all lying and all liars. A bias is built into it.
No, what you're saying is people are accusing you, people say to you, are you saying they're all liars?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like not even wrong. You're not even asking, that's the wrong question to be asking. You don't seem to understand the point. You don't. The person accusing you of that doesn't seem to understand human nature. And I give a little example there.
Right.
It's like them saying no one ever keeps their head down in a company and doesn't report on, skullduggery of some kind because they simply want to keep their job.
Right.
And just keep. But apparently that never happens according to people of the mindset that accuse you of saying they're all liars. That
Right.
never happens. Human beings are always impeccable and always done up, especially in science.
And
right?
there's a
Science.
consensus, and therefore it's the objective mean.
Well, it's yeah, exactly. And the bullshit is this idea of the science, as if the science is some, disembodied, intelligence that opines on things. Obviously,
Like
the science.
God.
Yeah, it's like God.
It's replaced
Right,
God
it's like
for
God.
them.
Like
Yeah.
Anthony Fauci said, it was kind of like God. He was kind of like God. The science comes through human beings, and human beings are fallible. What part of that
Yeah.
simple idea do people not understand? It's that
Yeah. To err is
that
to be
simple
human.
exactly. Well, that simple
Truism.
idea that is not up for debate, that no one debates, no one questions, that human beings are fallible, and there's no such thing as the science. All science comes through human beings, comes through their minds and the complicated nature of human beings and their emotions and their needs and their wants and their prejudices and the way they lie to themselves and their prodigious ability to delude themselves. But somehow people still appeal to this idea of some objective, the science that exists separate from human beings and is just shiny, squeaky clean always and is pure and gets transmitted to human beings
From on high.
from the mind of the science. No, it doesn't. It comes through dudes like this
Yeah.
who just admitted to falsifying information, effectively falsifying a study on global warming, the impact of global warming on wildfires, because
get
he
ahead.
wanted to get into a journal to get money.
To get ahead, yeah.
Are you trying to tell me that people do stuff for money? Really?
No, the war in Ukraine is about democracy.
Whatever. You wonder why we even, you wonder why we even, is what I'm saying.
I can't even.
I can't even. Anyway, yeah. That's it.
Do you want to? That's it. We're done.
Go on.
What about we thought we might return to it last week. We didn't have time. The Maui wildfire. maybe that's old news. It's gone
Aliens.
now, but Jesus. We did refer to it, the claim that cops were redirecting people. That's not confirmed. That actually happened. At least it wasn't denied, let's say. A local Hawaii news station did a report on it. More people have given testimony who were there. I said, yeah, they were at the edges of the town, sending them all back in. It must be so weird living in the US. Like, well, maybe not. If everyone around you is in a similar mush brain state of mind, maybe it's not weird until disaster strikes, I suppose. This is a news report. We won't watch the whole thing, but it just reports matter of factly on, yes, there were cops directing people back into the fire. Listen for a minute.
By meeting with evacuees and cataloging their video, a more robust timeline comes into focus, and there are some surprises. Lahaina Luna Road, where it meets the highway, that was shut down at one point. Keawe Street and Honoapilani northbound was shut down during the height of the evacuation for over 2 hours. Downed power lines entangled these cars on Honoapilani Highway near Kapunakea, 1 block north of Lahaina Gateway. This man at 2:53 p.m. August 8th is unsure if the lines are energized and removes the power line from his SUV using a branch. Videos shot by Travis Miller shortly after he goes in and out of Safeway at 3 p.m. show northbound lanes then shut down. This video shows no cars on the blocked-off highway still 5:24 p.m., 2.5 hours later, when Debbie Schultz-Peterson shot this video. Miller's video documented the lane closure during that time. He says police directed traffic down Keawe Street into the cannery.
And either went out the backside on the front street. I could see that everyone was blocked, so I went out and I came this way, and I got under the power line.
Though we are not crossing the barricade, we're told we cannot film here.
You go somewhere else, but you guys not allowed here.
Big cloud of black smoke past the window.
Before 4:30 p.m., Chantal Katnak.
I don't know. Somebody will have to provide an explanation why you would block off roads that.
I think there's one kind of built into the reporting now that I'm rewatching it. It's that, well, there was danger. The danger was
Power
down
lines.
power lines, so it was for your protection.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. In 7 hours, they couldn't remove them at one or
pull them out
two
of
of
the
the
way.
5 key points of leaving. It's dodgy. Another aspect is that they put up this giant dust screen. That's the ostensible reason for it. 5 miles of perimeter of blackout fencing all around the town. Not
Wait,
allowed to see.
afterwards.
Yeah,
Since
now.
then, right.
Yeah. Since August 25th, so 3 weeks after the fact. That's all erected. And people are driving around and they're showing the entire perimeter. And ostensibly the dust,
weeks,
it's
yeah.
called it a dust screen. It's because there's a lot
The
of
ash.
stuff that's burned in there, toxic stuff. It's to protect you on the outside
Right.
from inhaling it.
Well, maybe.
A 2 meter high fence.
Maybe. Better than nothing, I suppose. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that's all I got.
that's all you got?
This week,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, final note is, what do you get when you cross a corrupt lawyer with a crooked politician?
Go on.
Chelsea Clinton.
Chelsea Clinton.
Yeah. Political joke. Anyway.
But actually, her real father was also a lawyer.
Exactly. So you get...
But her mother was a lawyer too. Oh, but she became a politician.
Right.
Okay, right. I get it now.
At the time.
Drops.
At the time. Anyway, yeah. So we're going to leave it there for this week, folks. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and liking and commenting. And we'll be back next week with another show, updating you on whatever's been going on between now and then. Hopefully, it won't be too much madness, but par for the course these days. So,
yeah.
what can you expect? So, anyway, have a good one. See you later.
Thanks for watching. Bye all.
Can't stop the signal now.